Marcus was just 11 years old when he went to his mother's work party. His mother, Denise, cleaned offices at Maxwell Industries for 5 years now. She usually left Marcus with his grandma when she worked, but tonight was different. Grandma was sick, and Denise couldn't find anyone to watch him. "You'll have to come with me," Denise told Marcus that evening. "But please, stay quiet and don't get in anyone's way." Marcus nodded. He was always a quiet boy anyway. At school, he kept to himself most of the time. Other kids sometimes made fun of his worn-out shoes and old clothes, so he learned it was easier to stay invisible. "Wear your good clothes," Denise said, pulling out the blue button-up shirt and black pants she had bought from the second-hand store. The shirt was a bit too big, and the pants were a little short, but it was the best they had. The party was at the big office building where his mom worked. Marcus had never seen anything like it before. The main hall was huge, with bright lights and Christmas decorations everywhere. A giant tree stood in one corner, covered in shiny ornaments. People in fancy clothes talked and laughed while holding glasses of drinks. But what caught Marcus's eye was the piano. It sat in another corner of the room, big and black and shiny. It looked so much better than the old keyboard at school that had 3 broken keys. "Stay here by this table," Denise told him, putting a small plate of food in front of him. "I need to talk to some people. Be good." Marcus ate slowly, his eyes never leaving the piano. At school, his music teacher, Ms. Rivera, had been teaching him to play during lunch breaks. She said he had a gift, but they only had that old keyboard to practice on. "You have magic in those fingers," Ms. Rivera often told him. "Don't let anyone tell you different." After eating, Marcus walked closer to the piano. He didn't touch it. He just stood nearby, looking at it with wonder. It was so beautiful, so perfect. He wondered how it would feel to play on such a fine instrument. That's when Robert Maxwell, the CEO of the company, noticed him. Mr. Maxwell was a tall man with gray hair and an expensive suit. He was known for being tough and sometimes mean. Tonight, he had been drinking and was feeling bold. "Hey, look at this," Mr. Maxwell said loudly, walking over to Marcus. "The cleaner's kid is interested in my piano." Several other men in suits turned to look. Marcus wanted to run away, but his feet wouldn't move. "You like this piano, boy?" Mr. Maxwell asked with a laugh. "It cost more than your mother makes in a year." Marcus just nodded, too scared to speak. "Well then," Mr. Maxwell said with a smirk, "why don't you play something for us? Give us a show." The men around him laughed. They thought it was a good joke. What would a poor cleaner's son know about playing such a fine piano? Denise rushed over, her face red with shame. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Maxwell. We'll go back to our table now." "No, no," Mr. Maxwell insisted, still smiling. "The boy wants to play. Let him play. Everyone, attention please. We have a special performance tonight." The room went quiet. People turned to look. Denise's eyes filled with tears, but Marcus felt something strange inside him. Instead of fear, he felt calm. He looked at the piano, then at Mr. Maxwell's mocking face. Without a word, he walked to the piano bench and sat down. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. He placed his fingers on the keys, took a deep breath, and closed his eyes. The room was completely silent now. Everyone waited for the joke to play out. And then Marcus began to play. When Marcus's fingers touched the piano keys, something magical happened. The room that had been filled with mocking smiles suddenly went still. The first notes of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata filled the air. Not the easy first part that beginners play, but the hard third part that even good piano players find tough. Marcus played with his eyes closed. His small fingers moved fast and sure across the keys. The music flowed from him like water from a spring. It was as if he and the piano were one. Denise watched with her hand over her mouth, tears rolling down her face. She knew her son liked music, but she had never heard him play like this. Where did he learn to do this? Mr. Maxwell's joking smile dropped from his face. His mouth opened in shock as he watched the boy play. The drink in his hand was forgotten. Around the room, people stopped talking. Waiters stood still with trays in their hands. Everyone just listened. Marcus played the whole piece without a single mistake. When the last note faded away, the room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Then, like a dam breaking, the applause started. It wasn't polite clapping. It was real, thunderous applause with cheers and whistles. Marcus opened his eyes and looked around, surprised by the reaction. He wasn't used to people cheering for him. Usually, kids at school made fun of his old clothes or the free lunch he got. Mr. Maxwell pushed through the crowd and stood by the piano. His face was different now. All the meanness was gone, replaced by wonder and something that looked almost like shame. "Young man," he said, his voice serious, "where did you learn to play like that?" Marcus looked at his mother, then back at Mr. Maxwell. "Ms. Rivera teaches me at school during lunch breaks," he said softly. "But we only have an old keyboard with some broken keys. And you play like this on a broken keyboard?" Mr. Maxwell asked, still not believing what he had heard. Marcus nodded. "Sometimes I can't practice on a real piano, so I draw piano keys on paper and practice with that. Or I just move my fingers in the air and hear the music in my head." A hush fell over the crowd again as they took in what the boy was saying. This child, with no piano at home, had taught himself to play like a pro by practicing on paper and in the air. Mr. Maxwell looked at Denise, who was still crying quiet tears of pride. "Mrs. Johnson, your son has an amazing gift," he said. "This is not something that should be wasted." That night changed everything. As the party went on, Marcus played more songs. People requested tunes, and he played them all. Some he knew well, others he had only heard a few times, but his ear was so good that he could copy almost anything. By the end of the night, Marcus had made fans of everyone in the room. People who had never noticed Denise before were now coming up to congratulate her on her talented son. Mr. Maxwell's friends, who had laughed along with his joke, now looked embarrassed. As they were leaving, Mr. Maxwell stopped them at the door. The party was over, and most people had gone home. "Mrs. Johnson, I need to speak with you and Marcus tomorrow," he said. His voice was different now, kind, respectful. "Can you come to my office at 10 in the morning?" Denise was worried. Was she in trouble for bringing Marcus? Would she lose her job? "It's nothing bad," Mr. Maxwell added, seeing her worry. "I think I might be able to help your son." On the bus ride home, Marcus and his mother sat quietly. Both were thinking about what had happened and what tomorrow might bring. "Mom," Marcus finally asked, "do you think he really wants to help me?" Denise hugged her son close. "I don't know, baby, but you showed them all tonight. You showed them who you really are." The next morning, Denise and Marcus sat in the waiting room outside Mr. Maxwell's office. Denise had called in sick to her other cleaning job to be here. She couldn't afford to miss work, but this was too important. What if he's just being nice to look good in front of his friends? Marcus whispered. Before Denise could answer, the door opened. Mr. Maxwell stood there in a dark blue suit, looking very different from the laughing man at the party. "Please come in," he said, his voice serious but kind. Mr. Maxwell's office was huge, with big windows that showed the whole city. Marcus had never been this high up in a building before. He could see tiny cars moving far below. "Please, sit down," Mr. Maxwell said, pointing to 2 chairs in front of his desk. As they sat, Marcus noticed a small photo on the desk. It showed a younger Mr. Maxwell with a woman and a little boy about Marcus's age. "First," Mr. Maxwell began, "I want to say I'm sorry for how I acted last night. It was wrong of me to try to make fun of you, Marcus." Denise and Marcus both stared in surprise. They had never expected the big boss to say sorry. "What you played was amazing," Mr. Maxwell continued. "I've never heard anyone your age play like that. My son," he paused, looking at the photo on his desk, "my late son took lessons for years and never played that well." Denise gasped softly. "I'm sorry about your son, sir." Mr. Maxwell nodded. "Thomas loved music, but he didn't have the natural talent your son has. We lost him to cancer 3 years ago. He was 12. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Mr. Maxwell straightened up and opened a folder on his desk. "I made some calls this morning. There's a music school across town, the Miller School of Music. It's one of the best in the country. The director is an old friend of mine." Marcus's eyes got wide. He had heard of this school. Ms. Rivera once told him that famous musicians studied there. "They have agreed to give Marcus an audition next week," Mr. Maxwell said. "If he does well, and I know he will, they're offering him a full scholarship." Denise started to cry. "A scholarship we could never afford." "Everything will be covered," Mr. Maxwell said. "Tuition, books, even a proper piano for your home." Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. A real piano, a music school. "But why?" Denise asked. "Why would you do this for us?" Mr. Maxwell looked at the photo of his son again. "Because talent like Marcus's is rare. It should be nurtured, not wasted. And because," he hesitated, "because I saw something in his playing that reminded me of the passion Thomas had for music." He turned to Marcus. "You play from your heart, young man. That can't be taught." Mr. Maxwell stood up. "There's one more thing. Mrs. Johnson, I'm offering you a new position here at the company. Administrative assistant in our HR department. Better hours, better pay, full benefits." Denise was speechless. This would change their whole life. "Thank you," Marcus said, speaking for the first time since they entered the office. "But what about the other kids at my school? Some of them might be good at music too, but they don't get a chance to try." Mr. Maxwell looked surprised. Then he smiled. A real smile, not like the mocking one from the party. "You know, that's a very good point. What would you think about starting a music program for kids who can't afford lessons?" Marcus's face lit up. "That would be amazing." "Then it's settled," Mr. Maxwell said. "We'll call it the Thomas Maxwell Music Program. And you, Marcus, will be our first success story." As they left the office, Denise hugged her son tight. "Everything is going to be different now," she whispered. Marcus nodded, all because of a piano and a joke that didn't work out like he planned. 1 week later, Marcus sat in front of a panel of 3 serious-looking music teachers at the Miller School of Music. The main audition room had the biggest piano Marcus had ever seen. It was even nicer than the one at Mr. Maxwell's company party. "Whenever you're ready, young man," said Mrs. Peterson, the school director. She was an older woman with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. Marcus took a deep breath. Denise and Mr. Maxwell watched from chairs near the wall. Denise was squeezing her hands together so hard her knuckles were white. Marcus started to play. This time, he chose Bach's Prelude in C major. His fingers moved smoothly across the keys. The music filled the room like sunshine filling a dark space. When he finished that piece without being asked, he moved right into Chopin's Minute Waltz, playing it faster and with more feeling than most adult pianists. The 3 judges looked at each other with wide eyes. Mrs. Peterson made a small note on her paper, then held up her hand. "That's enough, thank you," she said, but her voice was gentle, and there was a smile on her face. "Marcus, would you mind stepping outside with your mother for a moment? We need to talk to Mr. Maxwell." Denise and Marcus waited in the hallway. Marcus played with the zipper on his jacket, while Denise paced back and forth. "Did I do something wrong?" Marcus asked. "No, baby. You played beautifully," Denise assured him, though she was worried too. Inside the room, Mrs. Peterson was shaking her head in amazement. "Robert, you didn't tell us he was at this level," she said to Mr. Maxwell. "This boy hasn't just been playing for fun. He has extraordinary talent." "So you'll take him?" Mr. Maxwell asked. "Take him? We want to put him in our advanced program," Mrs. Peterson said. "He's already better than students who've been here for years." "Where has he been studying?" "That's the thing. Mr. Maxwell replied. He's been learning on a broken keyboard at school. His teacher gives him lessons during lunch breaks. The judges looked shocked. One of them, Mr. Torres, spoke up. That's impossible. No one gets this good on a broken keyboard with lunchtime lessons. And yet he did, Mr. Maxwell said simply. When Marcus and Denise were called back in, they found all the adults smiling. Marcus, Mrs. Peterson said, we would be honored to have you join our school. You will start in our advanced program right away. Denise covered her mouth with her hand. Advanced, but he's just starting formal lessons. Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Torres said, your son has a rare gift. He plays with both technical skill and emotional depth that we rarely see in students 3 times his age. On the way home, Mr. Maxwell took them to a music store. It was huge, with instruments of all kinds hanging on the walls and sitting on display stands. In the center of the store was a room of pianos. Pick one, Mr. Maxwell told Marcus. Marcus walked slowly around the room, touching each piano gently. He stopped at a medium-sized black one that wasn't the biggest or fanciest. This one, he said quietly. It sounds the most like music. The store owner looked impressed. The boy has a good ear. That's a Yamaha Baby Grand, one of our best. Later that day, the piano was delivered to Marcus and Denise's small apartment. It barely fit in their living room. The delivery men had to take the door off its hinges to get it inside. That night, after playing for hours, Marcus looked up at his mother. Mom, do you think my dad would be proud of me? Denise, who rarely spoke about Marcus's father who had left when Marcus was just a baby, nodded with tears in her eyes. He'd be a fool not to be, she said. As Marcus played softly, neighbors began to gather outside their door, listening to the beautiful music coming from apartment 3B, music that would soon be heard far beyond their small building. 6 months passed quickly. Marcus's life had changed completely. He now went to regular school in the morning and the Miller School of Music in the afternoon. His mother drove him there after her work at Maxwell Industries, where she was doing well in her new job. The Thomas Maxwell music program was growing too. Mr. Maxwell had kept his promise. He turned one of the empty floors in his building into a music center with pianos, guitars, drums, and other instruments. 20 kids from Marcus's old school were now taking free lessons there after school. One sunny Tuesday, Mrs. Peterson called Marcus into her office at the music school. Marcus was worried. Had he done something wrong? Marcus, please sit down, Mrs. Peterson said with a smile. I have exciting news. The National Young Musicians Competition is coming up. It's the biggest competition for young piano players in the country. I've entered your name. Marcus's eyes grew wide. But I've only been studying here for 6 months, he said. And you've learned more in those 6 months than most students learn in 5 years, Mrs. Peterson replied. You're ready. That night, Marcus told his mother about the competition. Denise was both proud and worried. That sounds like a very big deal, she said. Will you be competing against kids your own age? No, Marcus said. It's for all kids under 18. Some will be much older than me. Denise hugged her son tight. No matter what happens, I'm proud of you. For the next month, Marcus practiced harder than ever. He worked on a very difficult piece by Franz Liszt called La Campanella. Even his teachers at the Miller School were amazed he could play it. The day of the competition arrived. It was held in a famous concert hall downtown. Marcus had never been in such a grand place. The stage was huge, with a perfect black piano sitting in the center under bright lights. Backstage, Marcus peeked out at the audience. There were hundreds of people there. He saw his mother sitting next to Mr. Maxwell in the front row. Behind them were his teachers from Miller School, and next to them was Ms. Rivera from his old school. She had brought 10 kids from the Thomas Maxwell music program to watch him play. Marcus Johnson, you're next, a woman with a clipboard called. Marcus walked onto the stage. The lights were so bright he could barely see the audience now. He sat at the piano and placed his hands on the keys. For a moment, his mind went blank. What if he messed up? What if he forgot the notes? Then he remembered something Ms. Rivera had told him long ago. When you play, just tell your story through the music. Marcus closed his eyes and began to play. His fingers danced across the keys, bringing Liszt's difficult piece to life. He played with such feeling that people in the audience began to cry. The judges sat up straight in their chairs, watching his every move. When he finished, the whole concert hall was silent for a moment. Then everyone stood up and began to clap and cheer. It was the loudest applause of the day. After all the competitors had played, it was time to announce the winners. Marcus stood with the other young musicians on stage. Most were teenagers, much older than him. And the first prize goes to... The head judge paused, looking at the paper in his hand. Marcus Johnson. The crowd went wild. Denise was crying happy tears. Mr. Maxwell was clapping so hard his hands hurt. Ms. Rivera and the kids from the music program were jumping up and down. As Marcus stepped forward to accept his trophy, a man from the audience approached the stage. He wore an expensive suit and had a serious look on his face. "Young man," he said, extending his hand to Marcus, "I'm from Juilliard School of Music in New York. We need to talk about your future." The man from Juilliard was named Dr. William Carter. He was in charge of finding young talent for the famous music school. The next day, he met with Marcus, Denise, and Mr. Maxwell in Mrs. Peterson's office at the Miller School. "What you did yesterday was extraordinary," Dr. Carter said to Marcus. "In my 30 years of teaching, I've rarely heard a child your age play with such skill and feeling." Marcus looked down shyly. He still wasn't used to all this praise. "Juilliard has a special program for gifted young musicians," Dr. Carter continued. "We would like to offer Marcus a place in this program. He would study with our best teachers on weekends and during summer breaks." Denise looked worried. "But we live here, not in New York." "That's something we can work out," Dr. Carter said. "For now, Marcus could come once a month for special lessons. When he's older, we can talk about more regular study." As they left the meeting, a woman with a notebook stopped them. She had short red hair and a friendly smile. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm Sarah Wells from the City Times newspaper. I was at the competition yesterday. Your son's story is amazing. Would you let me write about him?" Before Denise could answer, more people with cameras and microphones appeared. News about the young piano genius had spread fast. "Marcus, how does it feel to win such a big competition?" one reporter asked. "When did you start playing piano?" asked another. Marcus felt dizzy with all the attention. Mr. Maxwell stepped in front of the crowd. "Marcus and his mother need time to think about all this," he said firmly. "Please contact my office if you want to arrange an interview." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. His mind was full of everything that had happened. Just 1 year ago, he was a nobody. Just a poor kid from the East Side who played piano on a broken keyboard during lunch. Now people wanted to write about him in newspapers and magazines. The next morning, Marcus found his mother sitting at the kitchen table with a serious look on her face. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said. "Dr. Carter's offer is wonderful, but the travel would be hard, and there would be costs even with a scholarship." Marcus nodded. He understood that money was still tight, even with his mom's new job. But Denise continued with a small smile. "Mr. Maxwell called this morning. He wants to help. He's offering to pay for all our trips to New York and anything else we need." Marcus's eyes widened. "Really? Why would he do that?" "I asked him the same thing," Denise said. "He told me, because music saved me after my son died. Now it's saving others through Marcus. He sees something special in you, baby." 2 weeks later, Marcus had his first lesson at Juilliard. His teacher was a famous pianist named Ms. Abramova. She was strict but kind, and she pushed Marcus harder than anyone had before. "Your hands are small now," she told him, "but they will grow. In the meantime, we work on technique and feeling. Always feeling." After the lesson, Marcus and Denise walked through the busy streets of New York. Everything was so big and loud compared to their town. "Mom," Marcus said suddenly, "do you think I could live here someday? To study music full-time?" Denise looked down at her son, who seemed to be growing up so fast. The shy boy who used to hide behind her at parties was now talking about moving to New York City. "If that's what you want," she said, "we'll find a way to make it happen." "And what about the other kids?" Marcus asked. "The ones in Mr. Maxwell's music program. What about them?" Denise asked. "I want to help them too," Marcus said. "I want to teach them when I'm home from New York." Denise smiled with pride. Success hadn't changed her son's good heart. 5 years passed. Marcus was now 16 years old and had grown tall and confident. He traveled to New York twice a month for his lessons at Juilliard. When he was home, he helped teach younger kids at the Thomas Maxwell Music Program, which now had over 100 students. One Friday afternoon, Marcus was helping a young girl named Zoe with a difficult piece when Mr. Maxwell walked in. He looked older now, with more gray in his hair, but his eyes were bright and happy. "Marcus, do you have a minute?" he asked. They stepped into the hallway, leaving Zoe to practice. "I just got a call from Vienna," Mr. Maxwell said. "The International Young Artists Festival wants you to perform. It's one of the biggest honors for a musician your age." Marcus's heart beat faster. Vienna was where many of the great composers like Mozart and Beethoven had lived and worked. "When?" Marcus asked. "Next month," Mr. Maxwell replied. "They want you to play a 20-minute program. Your mom already said it's okay." That night, Marcus and his teacher, Ms. Abramova, talked on a video call. She was excited about the Vienna invitation. "This is a big step, Marcus," she said. "We need to choose your pieces carefully." They decided he would play Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata and an original piece that Marcus had composed himself. Ms. Abramova had been encouraging him to write his own music for the past 2 years. "Your composition is special," she told him. "It tells your story in a way that words cannot." The next few weeks were filled with intense practice. Marcus would wake up at 5 in the morning to play before school, then practice more in the evening. His fingers sometimes hurt, but he didn't mind. This was his chance to play in Vienna, the city of music. The day before they were set to leave for Vienna, Marcus visited Mr. Maxwell at his office. The CEO was on the phone when Marcus arrived, but he quickly ended his call. "Marcus, come in," he said warmly. "All ready for tomorrow?" "Yes, sir," Marcus replied. "I wanted to thank you for everything. Not just this trip, but for all you've done since that Christmas party." Mr. Maxwell's eyes grew misty. "You know, that night changed my life too. After Thomas died, I became cold and mean. I was angry at the world. But when I heard you play, something inside me woke up." He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small box. "This was Thomas. I want you to have it." Marcus opened the box. Inside was a small gold pin shaped like a piano. "Thomas wore it for his first recital," Mr. Maxwell explained. "I think he would want you to have it now." The next day, Marcus, Denise, and Mr. Maxwell flew to Vienna. Ms. Rivera came too, along with Mrs. Peterson from the Miller School. Even Dr. Carter from Juilliard made the trip. The concert hall in Vienna was the most beautiful place Marcus had ever seen. Gold decorations covered the walls and ceiling. Famous paintings of composers hung everywhere. The piano on stage was over 100 years old, but kept in perfect condition. Backstage, Marcus pinned Thomas's gold piano to his jacket. He peeked through the curtain and saw that the hall was full. There were music critics, famous pianists, and regular people who had read about the young American pianist. "Are you nervous?" Denise asked, adjusting his tie. "A little," Marcus admitted. "But Ms. Abramova says a little nervous is good. It means you care." "Ladies and gentlemen." The announcer's voice came over the speakers in German, then English. "Please welcome, from the United States, Marcus Johnson. Marcus took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, but he could see his mother and Mr. Maxwell in the front row. He sat at the piano, placed his fingers on the keys, and began to play. Marcus's fingers moved across the keys with skill and heart. The Beethoven piece came first. He played each note perfectly, but it was more than just right notes. Marcus made the music tell a story. People in the audience leaned forward in their seats, caught up in the power of the sound. When he finished the Beethoven piece, the audience clapped loudly. Now it was time for Marcus's own music, the piece he had written himself. Before he began, Marcus spoke into the microphone in a clear voice. This next piece is called From Paper Keys to Vienna. It's the story of my journey. The music started softly, with simple notes that sounded a bit sad and hopeful at the same time. This was Marcus practicing on paper keys and dreaming of more. Then the music grew stronger and faster, the moment at the Christmas party when he shocked everyone. The middle part was full of joy and surprise, his time at music school and winning competitions. The ending was powerful and proud, his journey to this very stage. When the last note faded away, the concert hall was completely quiet. Then, like a wave, the applause began. People stood up, clapping and cheering. Some were crying. An old man in the front row kept saying, "Bravo, bravo," over and over. Marcus bowed deeply. He looked at his mother, who was wiping tears from her eyes. Mr. Maxwell was clapping harder than anyone, his face full of pride. After the concert, people crowded around Marcus. Famous musicians and teachers wanted to meet him. Music critics asked questions about his composition. A woman from a record company handed him her card. "We would love to record your original compositions," she said. "The world needs to hear your music." Later that night, Marcus and his group celebrated at a nice restaurant. Denise kept looking at her son with wonder in her eyes. Was this really the same boy who had once been too shy to talk to strangers? "A toast," Mr. Maxwell said, raising his glass. "To Marcus, who has more talent in his little finger than most people have in their whole body, and to music, which has the power to change lives." Everyone raised their glasses. Ms. Rivera, who had first seen Marcus's talent, smiled through her tears. "Did you ever imagine this would happen?" Denise asked her quietly. "Yes," Ms. Rivera said simply. "The first time I heard him play on our broken school keyboard, I knew." The next morning, Marcus woke up early. He couldn't sleep with all the excitement still in his head. He went down to the hotel lobby and found Mr. Maxwell sitting there, reading a newspaper. "You're up early," Mr. Maxwell said with a smile. "I was thinking about what's next," Marcus replied, sitting down next to him. "And what is next for Marcus Johnson?" Mr. Maxwell asked. Marcus looked serious. "I want to do more for kids like me. Kids who have talent but no chance to show it. The music program is good, but we can do more." Mr. Maxwell nodded slowly. "What do you have in mind?" "A real school," Marcus said, his eyes bright with the idea. "Not just after-school lessons, a full school for music and art, with scholarships for kids who can't pay." "That would take a lot of money," Mr. Maxwell said. "I know," Marcus replied. "But I'm going to start saving for my concerts, and maybe when I'm older and famous, I can make it happen." Mr. Maxwell looked at the young man beside him. No longer the scared boy from the Christmas party, but a person with a vision for the future. "You won't have to wait that long," Mr. Maxwell said. "I think we can start planning now." Marcus's face lit up. "Really? You'd help me build a school?" "Marcus," Mr. Maxwell said gently, "you've already built something more important. You've built hope." 10 years later, Marcus stood in front of a brand new building. He was now 26 years old, a famous concert pianist who had played in the best music halls around the world. His recordings had won awards, and music critics called him one of the greatest pianists of his generation. But today was more important than any concert or award. Today was the opening of the Johnson Maxwell School of Music and Arts. The large, modern building stood where an old warehouse had once been. It had practice rooms with new pianos, art studios filled with supplies, dance spaces with special floors, and classrooms for regular subjects, too. "Are you ready?" asked Mr. Maxwell, now in his 70s but still standing tall and proud. Marcus nodded. "I've been ready for this my whole life." A crowd had gathered for the opening. There were city officials, music teachers, parents, and children who would be the first students. Reporters and TV cameras were there too. Denise stood nearby, looking beautiful in a blue dress. She had quit her job at Maxwell Industries years ago to help run the Thomas Maxwell music program, which had grown bigger every year. Now she would be the school's director. "I declare the Johnson Maxwell School of Music and Arts officially open," Marcus said, cutting a red ribbon with large scissors. Everyone clapped and cheered. Children ran inside to see their new school. Parents followed, many with tears in their eyes. For most families, a school like this would normally cost too much money, but here, most students had scholarships. Later, after the tours and speeches were done, Marcus played a short concert on the stage of the school's new auditorium. He played the same piece he had performed all those years ago at the Christmas party, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. When he finished, an old man walked slowly to the stage. It was Ms. Rivera's husband, who had come to tell Marcus that his first teacher had passed away last year. "She kept every newspaper article about you," the man said, handing Marcus a large scrapbook. "She always said, I knew it from the first note he played." Marcus hugged the book to his chest, promising to place it in the school's library for all students to see. That evening, Marcus and Mr. Maxwell walked through the empty school. The children were gone for the day, but their energy still filled the rooms. "Do you ever think about that Christmas party?" Marcus asked. "How different things would be if you hadn't made that joke." Mr. Maxwell smiled sadly. "I was not a good man then. I was bitter about losing Thomas. I wanted to make someone else feel small so I could feel big. But look what came from it," Marcus said, waving his hand at the school around them. "That's the miracle," Mr. Maxwell said. "Sometimes our worst moments lead to our best." They stopped at a wall where photos hung. The largest was of Thomas Maxwell as a child, sitting at a piano. Next to it was a picture of Marcus at 11, playing at that Christmas party. Around them were photos of other children from the music program who had gone on to do well. 250 students this year, Marcus said. And next year we'll add another grade. And someday one of these kids will be the next Marcus Johnson, Mr. Maxwell added. Or maybe they'll be doctors or teachers, or something else wonderful, Marcus said. The point is, they'll have a chance to find out. As they left the building, the sunset made the windows glow like gold. Marcus looked back at the sign above the door, Johnson Maxwell School of Music and Arts, where every child can shine. From a joke to this, Marcus said softly, "Who would have believed it?" "I would," came a voice behind them. It was Denise, Marcus's mother. "I always knew you were meant for something special." The three of them stood together, looking at the school that had once been just a dream born from a cruel joke that backfired in the most beautiful way possible.